Hello YouTube, Jumpy23 here with the second and possibly final bonus video for my FE8 0% LTC. Today I'm bringing you Chapter 12 in 3 turns. The first thing that I'm going to do is rig some enemy attack stats down to make the turn 1 enemy phase more reliable. This doesn't end up mattering, but it did on an earlier route and I didn't care to reroute afterward. Chapter 8 in 4 turns was a fun exhibition, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it because I'm pretty sure it's nearly impossible to route Paladin Franz into a full game run. Chapter 12 in 3 turns, though, is probably a lot easier to put into a real LTC. There's no major investment difference between the 3 turn here and the 4 turn I actually used. The only trouble would be fitting in all of the staff, XP, and weapon break grinding in with the lower leniency of the 3 turn. The big reason I didn't try to route this into my actual LTC is that I didn't think it was possible. We need to kill the boss on turn 3 player phase. If we try to kill him on enemy phase, first of all, half the playable cast will die because the boss doesn't move first. And secondly, Marissa will suicide into Cormag. I thought you couldn't reach the boss on player phase though, but what I had missed at the time was that the Cyclops boss actually spawns one tile below Kellic, not on his same tile. With a Paladin Scooch on each of the first 2 turns, we can just barely reach. Thank you to the Chungler for pointing out my mistake in making this possible. We want to clear out all of these enemies near the start by turn 2 player phase, which means killing as many as possible on an enemy phase. Ephraim is dropped here to help with that, with Regan Leaf, as well as take some heat off Ford. Cormag has to be dropped on turn 2, which means he needs to do the rescue on turn 1. I can either have him rescue Ford or Seth. By rescuing Seth and having Ford do the drop on turn 1, Ford is in the back on turn 2, which will help with AI manip. Vanessa could technically replicate Tana here and let Tana do some XP grinding while Vanessa recruits Ewan, but Tana's chance of death is already unconscionably high. You would need to rig all day for Vanessa to survive turn 2. Ford is exposed to a lot of combat on this enemy phase because he has to participate in the Paladin Scooches. Keeping him alive is a big struggle. I had to use Ephraim to bait away some of the enemies, but now Ephraim and Ford each have a chance of death. Precisely how many enemies Ephraim pulls is RNG dependent. He'll always pull the first cav, and then maybe one more shaman in the Jav cav, depending on who gets hit more. The next struggle is the boss himself. Our only unit strong enough to one-round him is Cormag with the short spear, who needs the boss to have rolled exactly the minimum on both HP and defense. This is about 5% odds, and the boss spawns after enemy phase 1. This is why I burned 2,299 RNs for this enemy phase. This is not necessarily the earliest RN which works, but it was the easiest to find with my ghetto task tools. I just brute force tested every enemy phase where F and Ford each dodged and killed their first cavalier. If Tana stands next to the mage she stood next to, she will see the least combat. This means she will only be attacked by 4 enemies and need to dodge like 3 of them, as opposed to being attacked by even more and needing to dodge even more. Hooray! Once upon a time, I thought that Vanessa could draw an enemy away from Tana, but no, I don't think she can, so you could just undeploy her here. I've got just barely enough units to kill all of these enemies. Even Cormag has to contribute before Ford picks him up. Fortunately, he's attacking a Luna Shaman, so he's most likely to dodge, and if the Luna Shaman rolls down, he can even one-shot him like he does here. I drop Cormag up here because if I drop him right, he'll get blocked on his way to the boss. And now it's time to break out the Vican script for the second time in one video. If you thought that my last exhibition was unreliable, you hadn't seen anything yet. Kyle, Cormag, Ford, and Tana all face a real chance of death here, especially Cormag and Tana. I was pleasantly surprised to find an enemy phase that worked only 227 RNs away. Tassing is clutch. Tana can't just boost her avoid with a Slim Lance because the Cavalier she's going to face has a fucking Lance Reaver, so I just have to dodge it the old-fashioned way. The crit Seth got on that Bale was unnecessary. And thank God the Made Dukes moved before the mage, because otherwise Tana would have to dodge them as well. If Ford gets hit by both mages here, he draws away the archer from Cormag, which is very nice because Cormag has enough chance of death to worry about without an archer in the mix. He would normally survive the archer with 1 HP, although it is a killer bow archer, but he dodged here anyway. In this clear, people actually dodge more than is necessary. Tana also could have gotten hit by the Merc, but not the Mage or the Cavalier, and Cormac barely even taps into his 40 HP pool here. Happily, I do still get the Guiding Ring in this clear, although if you miss it, there are a few backup options in the route. A couple other Guiding Rings that you might be able to get, or you could just not promote Natasha and pierce Crit Leon instead. Tana manages to recruit Ewan, and the last thing to handle is the boss kill. Cormag has enough HP to survive a counter because he got so lucky on that enemy phase, which is great. It increases the reliability considerably. I only have to burn 93 RNs, and the boss strat is a double short spear crit at 49 hit and 5 crit. Pierce crits would boost the reliability here a lot by letting me roll the boss up on HP or defense on turn 1 instead of having to rig him down. And that is what Chapter 12 in 3 turns would roughly look like. Thanks for watching.